Hello, my loves. Dina here. No fear, just flow. I think the thing that I love most about Jesus is that he truly does starve my fear and feeds my faith. Like, I just have gotten rid of so many things that used to bother me, like the fear of what's going on in the world, or the fear of loneliness, or just all the things that used to drive me wild and crazy, and the anxiety and the stresses that I had, and depression. And I know I've talked about all those things, but I don't think that people fully understand that once you truly understand and embrace God, that you get this just peaceful knowing that everything is going to be okay. I'm tripping out because there are just birds flying everywhere around me, and I love birds. So anyway, but I'm also surprised at how many people haven't actually read the Bible. Like, that's the part that's the most interesting to me. So I chose to be a Christian. I think a lot of people become Christian from childhood, and maybe it's not a choice. Maybe it's just that choice was made for them because of their families, which is understandable. If I could do it differently, I would raise my children Christian for sure. But because I chose it, I really wanted to dive into it and understand what I was choosing. And so I read the Old Testament, even though everybody told me that I didn't need to, because the New Testament trumps the Old Testament, in the sense that now the New Testament takes a lot of the things that were said in the Old Testament and changes them. But I wanted to understand all of it. I wanted to understand where God was coming from in the beginning, and why he gave us Jesus, and how our relationship with Jesus changes the Old Testament. And so I find the Bible fascinating, and there are certain things that God suggests or really requires for us to be true Christians, and that is to get in the Word, which means to read the Bible. He would like us to pray. Fasting is in the Bible a lot. I have written a book about fasting. I am maybe not an expert, but I know quite a bit about fasting and the reasons why to fast and how to fast and the importance of fasting. In fact, I need to get on a fast myself. But he also likes us to disciple. And I think that that's where some people got scared, because I think sometimes people disciple in a judgmental way. And Jesus wasn't judgmental. Jesus was loving and kind. And so although there are things that people do that you might consider sinful or against the word of God, like, we're all sinners. We are. And so just because you've mastered some of the bigger sins, it doesn't mean that you don't have other ones. Like, I think most of us are judgmental, and that's technically a sin. I think most of us have envy and greed and, some of the other ones. So you may have mastered the big ones, but it's also, I think we live in a world where we desire connection, right? And so connection often leads to lust and leads to, just a breakup of the family in general. Like, we used to have very strong families, and we just don't have that, at least not in the United States. We don't. And it's sad to me, because I see people faltering, and they're out there in the world alone, and children are suffering because mothers are working and they're not in the homes anymore, and fathers are so busy struggling and being emasculated. And so we just live in a world where everything seems to be turned upside down, and I don't see the benefits. I don't. I am not judging anyone. Live the life that feels good for you, for sure. But also, if we're right about all this stuff, then why aren't things getting better? They're certainly not getting better. And we can't blame it on one person. We can't. We can't blame it on one president, no matter what side of the aisle you sit on, because this stuff has been going on forever. And so we have to look at ourselves, and we have to wonder, like, why are we allowing the breakup of family to happen? Why are we allowing the breakup of culture to happen? Why are we allowing ourselves to live in this constant state of fear when you can really live in a constant state of faith And faith is knowing that everything is going to be okay, even when it's chaotic. Like, you can take time off. You can take a day off. You can just enjoy what's going on around you. Like, it's a beautiful sunshiny day. The birds are flying around. There's a breeze. I mean, I have had a beautiful day, and that doesn't mean that there's not chaos in the world, but I don't need to be tuned into it. And maybe if we all tried tuning out a little bit, we would find that the world changes. And so I get that there's stuff that's painful. There is, but the reality is we need to get back to the basics of loving thy neighbor and really just listening to each other and not being afraid to have conversations that maybe get you out of your cognitive dissonance. Maybe you've been lied to. Maybe your truth is not real. And that's, I think, really hard for people to kind of grasp. Like, listen, I was an atheist my whole life, and now I just love Jesus. And I also had political views that differ from me now than they once did. And I used to be kind of angry. I would think that it was my job to tell people about themselves, and I don't do that anymore. And so there were a lot of things that I was willing to change about me. And I think we all need to be willing to do that. I think we all need to, like, go inside and decide, go inside here and decide whether the things that you think are actually bringing you joy, or are they bringing you pain? Are you in fear, or are you in flow? And so that's up to you to decide, and you can do that. You can change who you are, and people will still love you, and those that don't will fall away, and that's okay too. So I'm just asking people to really get out of the fear and get into the flow, and just know that together we can make things better, but we can't do it if we're all arguing amongst each other. We're all on the same side. We truly are. We just don't see it anymore because they want to divide and conquer. So let's not let them do it. In my opinion, Jesus is the way and the truth and the life. And so tap into that, because boy, was he magical. Really was. Such a good dude. Why wouldn't we want to be more like Jesus? You are loved. Like, subscribe, comment if you will, and have a blessed day.